your secretary.
We're missing our.
Yeah.
Oh,
He was here. Should we wait for a bit?
He went as a courtesy, the minutes attached to.
we'll do the
Yeah.
roll call when Pedro returns. Public comment.
For items. Yeah.
2 minutes for you. You guys do 2?
I don't know if it's 2 or 3. We do 3.
Recently, this is to the city council. The school board is aware of this. Recently, there was a school board meeting, and in early June, and the 9 teachers and educators came and spoke here in this room. And what they had to say was pretty shocking. They launched into diatribes against the Superintendent Rubio. And they accused him of bullying, incompetency, and installing racist practices here at the school district. It's pretty shocking. 9 teachers, a lot of them veteran teachers, all but one on their way out the door. As you're aware, Emory has the worst record in the entire Bay Area for school districts for teacher retention. So these were 9 teachers and educators on their way out, with one exception. One teacher that spoke was staying here. So they spoke to Superintendent Rubio's bullying of them, his incompetency, and his installing of racist practices here at the district. So Superintendent Rubio took the minutes of the video of the meeting home with him a couple days later, and then to draw up the minutes. And then he returned, and the minutes were prepared, and it was a total whitewash of what happened. The minutes did not, only one sentence about 9 teachers speaking, and it didn't mention anything about Mr. Rubio's incompetency or his racist practices or his bullying behavior against the teachers. So, shockingly, the school board voted to let the minutes go through as written by Dr. Rubio. And so we tried to appeal to the school, we being parents and citizens tried to appeal to the school board to ask that the minutes be rewritten to reflect what the teachers had said, but they voted 4-1 to not do that. So just everybody should know that, and I'm here to report that. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none. Approval of the March 2nd and May 4th, 2017 regular meeting action minutes.
Speak louder.
Did we do a roll call?
Oh yeah, roll call, please.
Councilmember Scott Donahue.
Here.
Councilmember John Bowder. Here. Councilmember Diane Martinez.
Here.
Councilmember Alan Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Christian Hack.
Here.
Board Member Bailey Sanger.
Here.
Board Member Brenda Collins. Board Member Barbara Hitch.
Here.
Board Member Don Marion.
Here.
Board Member Cruz Vargas.
Here. Okay, do I have a motion
Move
to?
approval.
Without objection? Are there any objections to approving the minutes? Action items. Cancel September 7th meeting.
Move approval.
I second.
Call public comment on the item.
Okay. Public comment? Seeing none?
Mr. Chair, this item also, separately, we're going to reschedule another meeting in October? Okay, so we're on 5.1 then,
Yes.
correct?
But
Okay, thank you.
5.1, is there an objection to, are there any objections to approval to 5.1? Okay, unanimous. 5.2, schedule a special meeting in October.
I'll move for approval.
Okay, what date would that be? Is that the,
October 5th. I'll second the motion.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And just to be
Opposed?
clear, that was October 5th, correct?
Correct.
Information items. Presentation of the Emeryville Center for Community Life waste stream.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am happy and proud to present Ms. Jessica Jane Robinson, also known sometimes as Miss Alameda, and also known as a superhero named Resilience, who has been working for the last year to prepare a waste stream plan for the ECCL campus that includes comprehensive education and waste stream movement and flow through the campus that includes the school district and city. So in a very wise move, folks from the city and the school got together and realized that this type of education would work best for the kids, since they are the same kids being served in the daytime as they are in the afternoons and aftercare, that they get the same training. So with no further ado, Resilience, you can take it away.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So yes, so once we got our feet wet at ECCL, we realized the more intensive outreach throughout the whole building sector actually came about because during one of my after-school program presentations, I think it was a 3rd or 4th grader came up to me and said, okay, so we don't do it during lunch at school. What do we do then? And I realized, yeah, that's a problem. So that inspired us to kind of collectively come back to the drawing board and think about an actual implementation plan to get the whole campus on board, including all the different departments from the grammar school, the high school, the middle school, as well as the city building, and then how to make that as a community flow. And during this process, we discovered a lot of things. So in search for parent support, because in some situation or some compost and recycle programs and other school districts that have a lot of parent support, usually parents, those type of parent green teams, they manage the green teams. And after doing some research and literally searching for some parent volunteers, I discovered through the PTO that they're really kind of tight in terms of volunteers. So I was very fortunate to connect with the vice president of the PTO, Susan, and she's been very, very helpful. So she kind of gave me a little bit more, she shed a little bit more light on the dynamics between the PTO and the school. And so by September, let me backtrack. So after meeting with Susan and realizing that the idea of having a green team driven by the PTO may not be the most ideal situation that's possible for ECCL, I had to then start to figure out, well, what could we do? And in the meantime, what I had, I partnered with Nancy Deming, who had an Altamont Education Advisory Board grant from Livermore to work with the school districts within Alameda County. So Nancy was very supportive with supporting Emeryville, the city, the district, and the city with purchasing containers. So we have all the containers, compost and recycle containers for the whole, for all buildings. So I'm really excited about that. And we have stickers, and they're customized stickers that go with the current program for the Unified School District, and they have the logo and everything attached. So we're ready in terms of internal containers. Between September and January of last year, I was working heavily to round up the principals and to get onto their schedule to meet with their faculty, which I actually did meet with them, and there was expressed interest in the program. And one of the teachers that actually wanted to support the green team for the elementary school, she's no longer here working at the school. However, once we meet with the new principals for the elementary and middle school, we'll once again see if there's any teachers that want to take on the green team. So we'll just like helping keep them organized during the school year. The positive thing is the high school, there's a high school group that is definitely interested in being a part of the green team for the high school. So that's really exciting, and that's run by the art teacher. So, so we did make some headway in terms of interest and who might be able to support it. And we also have support from the garden teacher. She's also going to continue the work of the green team after school with partnership with Asia, with the after school program. They're going to connect it with their wellness program that Asia wanted to work with them on in terms of eating healthy and exercise, and then showing them the cycle of once you eat healthy and you have your food scraps, you can put it back into the soil and work with the garden teacher and just kind of see how it's all interconnected. So, and then by February and March, I was in the process of securing the ASB group, that's the student group, and making sure that all the bins, all the stickers, everything that we needed for the whole entire, for the whole building complex, making sure that we have everything. So, by April, Nancy Deming and I were successful with having a custodial training where we were with Ron and the other custodians, and we went over the program, and that was really successful. And then we also had a kitchen staff training where we explained the program with, to Juliet and also the kitchen staff. And by May, I was able to implement the compost and recycling actually right here in the kitchen. And within one day of just supporting them, I went to check in and see how they were doing the next day, and they were doing like absolutely perfect. And I was just thinking, wow, I wish I had that experience with every restaurant that I ever worked with, because they just picked it up really well. We did uncover some challenges that we did not see when we were first approaching this program, and I was not aware that the custodial staff was limited in terms of manpower, and then they're also responsible for the whole entire building complex 7 days a week. And so addressing like how we can make this program more of a community base so that they're supported really came down, like drew my attention. So after meeting with Marcy and Juliet and Ron, we have brainstormed ways to really go about implementing this program, hopefully this coming school year. So one of the ways that the system's going to work to support the custodial staff, just in the hallways for each of the for each of the school buildings, we're going to have central locations for the bins. So we're going to have the landfill, the compost, and the recycle, and all the classrooms will have their own bins. And so we're really going to encourage the teachers to develop a system with any of their teacher aides or any selected students that take on leadership roles or rotation systems where they can just go and empty out the bins in the central location. So then when the custodians are handling all of the bins, they can just be responsible for the outside external bins. So they're not having to go to each class and handling all the small materials, so we can just have everybody empty them into central locations. And that's actually been successful with paper towels, for example, in other schools where there's been custodial time elements where there's been restriction of time to help implement these type of programs where the classrooms have taken on their compost pail with paper towels and would empty them in the bathroom or some sort of central location. And also some high schools in the Bay Area have also done similar programs to help with the recycling. So implementing something like that will definitely help support the custodians, and then also be a way that classrooms and students can take ownership of their program. So there's a lot of positive benefits. And then also with the green team, when we actually launched the composting and recycling during the lunchroom, since we don't have a huge group of parents that can help manage the students for each grade, we have developed a rotating system where depending on which lunch break we're talking about, the teachers will be able to rotate. So for example, second and third graders have lunch together, first grade and kindergarten have lunch together, fourth and fifth have lunch together, and it's so on and so forth. So between the first and second grade teachers, we'll have a rotating system where maybe the third grade teachers are responsible for the lunch monitor, for selecting lunch monitors the first month of the school year. And then in between that, within the weeks, each class, for 2 classes per each grade, they'll rotate in terms of selecting students. And that way, the positive thing about this type of structure is that it eliminates burnout. So sometimes green team students, if they do it a long time, they can get a little burned out. So this way, everybody gets a chance to be a part of being of monitoring and taking responsibility, and also just ensuring that they also remember where things go. And it'll just, if everybody takes a turn, then we'll have a higher chance of more students being eager and also participating and also respecting the system. So that's a positive thing. So turning maybe not a lack of extra support into a positive thing where everybody gets a chance to be a part of the system. And so because we have new principals this year for the grammar school and middle school, and they are taking on all of the new systems that ECCL currently has in place. They have suggested maybe implementing the grammar school and middle school in October, which is just fine. So, but I have in the past have spoken to Mrs. Good, and she's been aware of the interest of getting the composting and recycling going. So with this new information, the plan is to get the high school on the program, and hopefully within the first month of school, and rally up the students that are interested in supporting the green team and doing classroom lesson plans where they'll learn about climate change and the connection to waste reduction and composting and how that can reduce greenhouse gases, and possibly have these lessons in the science class. So that will be pretty exciting to launch, and then also get the students excited about how they can make a difference within their school year and just at home and every day. And then also with the high schoolers, once we get that program off the ground, then we can start working with the green team students about various ways that they may be able to express themselves and how they feel about the environment and waste reduction, and come up with a fun and positive type of program that they will create and develop that can be of benefit to the whole campus at large, and then also connect them with the city staff. So when there are events here that happen, public events, that we could have what I would call trash talkers, or we have monitors at the bin that help the public also participate in the campus's waste reduction program. And then we'll be doing the same thing for the grammar middle school. In October, we'll have a launch of an assembly and classroom lesson plans, and I will be in person to help support and monitor the lunches to make sure that everybody gets the system. And yeah, so we're almost there. Does anybody have any questions?
I do. Would you be able to just make sure that you keep the city council and school board informed as to the dates for any assemblies that you do? Because I would like to see resilience in action. That's why she's in the costume, by the way. She not only prepares the implementation plan, but she introduces it to the kids in character, which I think is really important for the engagement. So I would love to be there personally, sure. And if anyone else would like to join me and support, I think we could also, if we're available, provide support at those first few lunches when the green team is working and the kids are getting familiar with these ideas. The more adults on deck, the better. So if you could please share
Absolutely.
when those dates are, I think people will be volunteering from this group, I hope.
Absolutely, and as soon as we get this program off the ground and we start working with the youth and developing some sort of program or project that they want to do, I will definitely keep everybody in the loop in case if you want to support or volunteer any services to them.
I just want to say thank you again, because I think it's great, whatever we can do to support you. It sounds like you've already met have you met the new principals already?
Not yet, not
Okay.
yet. I'm looking forward to meeting them.
Okay, so thank you so much, and let my office or let Lisa know if you want me to connect you with them.
Oh, that would be great.
Okay.
At least I can say a hello before the school year starts.
Absolutely.
Great, thank
Great,
you
thank
so
you.
much
Thank
for the
you.
presentation. And then in connection with this, I have, well actually, Pedro made the copy, so thank you. There are copies of one, a San Lorenzo Unified School District Board of Education resolution, and a copy of San Lorenzo Unified's Waste Reduction and Resource Recovery Policy. So I have two minor asks of the board. The first would be of the school board, and I hope that you will consider at your next or the next possible school board meeting creating some waste reduction policy. And simply it says that you are reinforcing what's already state law. So what we already do in the state of California, in light of the fact that we need to reduce greenhouse gases by a certain percentage, in light of the fact that we're no strangers to recycling. One thing you folks might not know, but my colleagues on City Council know, is I serve on the board of Stop Waste, which is a recycling board, the Energy Council, and the Alameda County Waste Management Authority. So I am the person in my house separating the trash, and I can't wait for my children to take it over. So that's what this program's going to do. But not only that, I'm faced with the numbers every day, that 50% of what goes into landfill in the United States is compostable material. And if we can start taking that material out, it can start getting turned into mulch, it can start getting back into the ground, it can start sequestering greenhouse gases. So we can move the needle in the right direction. And this is a way to do it. So I'm really happy to be working with Resilience, with my partners on school board and on city council in bringing this forward. So that's my ask, that school board please consider instituting a meaningful policy and passing a resolution. And to my partners on city council, I ask that we find something small in our budget to recognize our custodial staff here at ECCL, because this is a big change for them, and it's a lot of work to make this work right. And for the kids, I want them to just feel some pride in getting it done. But for the custodial staff, I want to give them the real thank you and get them a nice lunch and appreciate the changes that they've had to make to their workflow. So with that, I can close this item.
Okay, thank you. Next item, 6.2.
Mr. Mayor, are you going to take public comment?
Excuse me. Public comment.
If there's no public comment, I have a comment.
Oh, yes.
I just want to thank Councilmember Martinez. As she noted, she's on Stop Waste and the Recycling Board, and I think teaching children positive habits, not only for living but for the environment, is incredibly important, and really appreciate you putting this on the agenda. Just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
I want to echo that and thank you and point out that it's not just your children's waste that you sort. There's been many a times in council chambers after closed session that you've sorted adults' compost stream as well.
I thought you were going to say adult waste, which wouldn't sound right.
I think I brought it up. And now I've noticed that we've all adopted that policy because we don't want you to have to dig through it. So thank you for bringing this forward.
It's my pleasure.
I'd like to thank you as well, and thank you for the suggestion, and then we'll take a look at this.
Thank you.
Okay, on to 6.2. Ralph Hawley property ownership.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm happy to report that we were able to make great progress over the summer, and the Alameda County Assessor's Office seems as delighted because we were able to provide them all of the deeds over the decades that were all recorded with the county, and they are correcting their maps. They believe it'll be corrected by this week in terms of their online mapping system to show that the Unified School District does own that property in its entirety. So, and we have moved forward to also process the P-bid checks so we can get that wrapped up as well, and that's being processed this week as well.
Also, today I was able to get verbal confirmation from our city attorney that he does accept both the all of the documents that were provided to support the ownership, the school district's ownership of the parcels, with the exception, I think we all know, that there is a tiny sliver over at Ralph Hawley School that is in the street. So as far as the property that's actually occupied by the school buildings, those all appear to be in order. However, the records at the county clearly were inaccurate, but the city attorney did confirm that with the updated title report that we conducted, that everything seems to be in order for the conclusion that the school district does own the parcels.
Any clarifying questions?
I have one, and that's just I guess the strip and the street. Does that affect anything or change responsibility for anything?
No, it's actually the only thing the county assessor is struggling over because they can't find any records to back that up. So they're not actually 100% the city has that. I told them I believe I ran into a document from the 1920s, and I tried to go back and find it. I haven't found it yet, where I believe a gentleman sold that sliver for $75 to the town of Emeryville. But they asked me if I could find it because they can't. That's the only thing they can't rectify right now.
So one of the things that you mentioned was you'll be paying the taxes. Now, in prior years, the city paid the taxes on the property, correct? So are we getting that money back, or is that just a wash? We're still in clarifying questions. So.
No, no.
Let me say something first.
Go ahead.
My understanding from the city staff in the past is that we were going to make corrections, I believe, for 16, 17, and going forward, the district would be responsible. I think I might have that correct. I'm not certain I recall exactly before 16, 17, but that's where we left off with city staff during the course of the year. Prior years to that, Member Pats, the school district, much prior to my time, had an arrangement with the city manager, John Flores, that the school district did not pay it. And that was an arrangement that existed over the years, and that's all I know.
Yeah.
I did confirm that today also. The city had a practice of not issuing the bills.
I'll let Member Bowders follow up on that.
Yeah, my question was, is that agreement in writing?
It is not.
And when you say we had a practice of not issuing bills, was it only to the school district or to all the other ones that were on the list when I met with the TMA?
My understanding is that there were three agencies, the AC Transit, the post office, and the school district. My conversation, however, with the city attorney confirms that going forward that will not be the practice, and I'll leave it at that.
So who was your conversation with?
I had a conversation with a former council member,
Which one?
Ruth Atkin,
So she's the person who confirmed that that was the practice.
from whom I learned that that was the practice. I also believe that the city has no standing, however, in exercising such a practice. So
what the practice was against the contract we have with the TMA, which is to collect the money. So we
it would be
we violated the
inconsistent
contract.
with PBID law.
But we're somehow exonerated from enforcing that now, is that what I'm hearing? We're not going to enforce retroactively anything, even though that's against the law?
I would say that that is not necessarily the case. I did ask the city attorney today about the standing. The first thing we wanted to do was to issue the bills for all of the public agencies that have not been paying their assessment in years past. So that is number one. Secondarily, I did have a discussion about where we go from here in terms of previous amounts and the city's standing on that. Well, it's not the city's standing, it's the PBID law that would be looked into.
Okay, and Dr. Rubio, just a couple quick questions. You stated that the school district is paying as of fiscal year 16-17. So Ralph Hawley was not corrected at the assessor's office as of 16-17. So are you reimbursing the city for 16-17?
Yes, as soon as that's corrected and if there's any change in the assessment, we're happy to make that correction. Yes.
Carolyn?
We've had conversation or written documentation from the assistant city manager who made sure that it is properly calculated to include, as we all agree, all of the parcels.
I am going to break form just slightly, Brian, make a comment, although public comment is needed here. I just want to thank you both for working to resolve the property ownership issue. It dragged on for a long time, and I had asked for us to put this on the agenda at the last meeting because it needed to be reconciled, both for ownership purposes, but as a member of the TMA board is even here, obviously we could not let the lack of funding for a public transportation agency in the city continue to go like this, and I appreciate you working very quickly to do that, so thank you to both of you.
Okay, public comment.
I'm sorry, I had another clarifying
My
question.
apologies.
That's okay. I guess there was some, I appreciate what Member Bowder said. That said, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that not that the PBID wasn't paid on that property, but that the city paid it because the city was identified, and those are the funds I'm specifically asking about, because we as a city entity cannot pay property taxes without it going through some, there has to be a reason and the council would have to vote on it. We can't just arbitrarily pay property taxes for another entity. So that's my question.
My understanding is that the parcels that have been improperly recorded up until now at the county, of which I think there are two that are being corrected, those would be the two of the school district's various parcels that the city was incorrectly paying on.
Right.
The other parcels were simply not paid at all because the bills were not issued.
No, I understood that. I guess I'll ask my question again. So the money that we paid on those parcels going backwards, how far back have we been paying the PBID, and when do we get that money reimbursed?
I did ask the assistant city manager to contact NBS, our consultant, and get a breakdown of, of those charges, the various parcels and what the breakdown in total would be.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, with permission, I could answer Mr. Patz's question.
Okay.
So I reviewed the chart that Cindy prepared before that city council meeting that we had, and for Ralph Hawley, from the origin of Ralph Hawley being within the PBID, it has never been paid. So the earliest date is 2001, and the amount of money owed for those two parcels is in the range of $2,000 to $3,000 a year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
And-
public comment.
Sorry, I have a clarifying question here. Is it safe to say then that the city will not continue to honor the verbal agreement that was previously in place? Is that what we're saying here?
There was no agreement in
Sorry,
place.
there was a verbal agreement in place, is that what I understood?
And the city has no legal standing.
Yeah, we understand that, however,
Right.
there's, and
So we could not legally go forward with an agreement that had no legal standing.
right, however,
Let me
It's never on.
let me clarify. By law, we can't have this agreement. So for us to tell you right now that we would honor it, we would be omitting an illegal act. So we cannot have the agreement, is what she's saying.
Okay.
Like,
I'd
so
like,
we
point
did
of
something
order.
illegal.
okay.
Point of order.
Okay, we're
I'd like to have the
almost
Sorry.
mayor, I would like to have the mayor run the meeting properly, please.
Any other clarifying questions? Seeing none, public
Okay,
comment.
those were not clarifying questions. That was substantive debate. The public is supposed to comment before the substantive debate. That was clearly a lot of those comments were clearly beyond clarifying. That was debate. So I'm asking the mayor, could you please be more diligent about running the meeting properly? Okay, so now on to the point. I'd like to when we leave here today, I would like everyone here and people watching to clearly understand what is happening here. So essentially, the Ralph Hawley School site on 61st, I guess it is, was under contention as to who owned it. The school district contended they owned part of it, and the city contended they owned part of it. So for years this went on, and taxes were paid to Alameda County based on that ratio of ownership. And so recently were PBID monies paid. PBID is for the Emory Transportation Authority. So now we come to find out that no, the city doesn't own any of that property, and the district owns all of it. And so for years, the city has been paying money to the Alameda County and to the PBID in error, and paying for the school district. So we being the city have to be made whole here. And so I would like everybody here, all the decision makers, to make sure that we understand the 2 points that's very clear before we leave. Are we going to be made whole with regard to the property taxes that were for years paid by the city? And are we going to be made whole for the more recent PBID monies that the city's been paying inappropriately? So I implore everybody here to make sure, don't use like gobbledygook language or overly esoteric language. Please make it clear. We want to know, are we going to be made whole? We being the city. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none. Further discussion? It seems like this point is not very clear to me. It seems murky. There is just, I can't imagine that, the ownership was not established in the minds of the public or the agencies really until this month or maybe last week. If we are going to go back into the past, I think we have to really think about it. It just seems very complicated, maybe needlessly complicated. If we consider this in the future, I just think that we should have it as a back burner issue to talk about it and study it further as opposed to trying to resolve it right now.
I'd like to comment that I believe the city has an obligation to the TMA, and so we need to make sure that no matter what transpired with any murkiness, we need to figure out exactly who is owed what, and make sure that the TMA receives the funds that they are due, and that the city is then reimbursed for those funds if they had inadvertently paid them. And I think that's a really important thing for us to do, and I'd like to continue and revisit this next time we meet as well. Make sure that that happens.
And to expand on that, I'd love to get confirmation that the city was in fact paying these funds. I just have not seen proof of that today. I'd love to see that as well.
We were not, is what I just heard.
Correct.
What I just heard is we did not pay the taxes on the property. But that doesn't relieve the city of its obligation to make the Transportation Authority whole. And, you know, while I appreciate your looking at us and saying, well, are we going to honor our agreement? You can't honor an illegal agreement, and I have not heard anybody of authority make that agreement. It sounds to me as it was between a superintendent and a city manager, and neither of them have the authority to waive a tax payment. But I am hearing pretty clear pretty clear majority of the board wants to make sure that money gets paid.
My intention is that we gather the facts first, and then we have the appropriate discussion on that. Right? It seems like the facts appear to be missing, so that's what I'm after.
So this is an information item, and what I would propose is that we bring this back to City Council and I would like to have our city attorney weigh in on this issue, and I'd love to have an open public discussion with him
I really
included.
support that.
I agree.
Yes.
Okay, seeing no further need for action or comments, should we move on?
Yes.
6.3, Community Services After-School Program.
This item was asked to be put on by Councilmember Pats, and I've also added on Brad Helfenberger, who's going to do a presentation along with Asia Pujol of our after-school program and summer camp.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brad Helfenberger. I don't know everyone in the room, so I thought I'd introduce myself. I'm the recreation manager for the city of Emeryville, so I oversee the youth services programs as well as the adult services programs. And Councilmember Pats requested some information for the after-school program and the summer camp, including our participation numbers. And it occurred to us that we used to make a presentation about once a year to this body, just to give an update on the progress of the after-school program and the summer camp. So we thought it would be appropriate to continue that tradition, which I think we haven't done in about 3 years now, especially now that we're here and well established at the ECCL. So we chose to do that this evening. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Asia Pujol, who is our youth programs coordinator, and she directly oversees both the after-school program and the summer camp.
All right, thank you, Brad. So again, I'm Asia Pujol, and I'm the program coordinator for the...
Asia, can you speak right into the microphone?
Okay, so I'm Asia Pujol, and I'm here to give an overview and highlight our youth programs. So first, let's see. So just by the numbers with the after-school program, last year we had 137 students enrolled. 35 of the students were residents, 102 were non-residents. We had 107 families on sliding scale, and we employed 25 rec leaders throughout the year. So a day in the life of after school. So within after school, we have a balance of, so our program is designed to provide a balance of academic supports, skill building activities, and physical activity. So here is a basic day of our after school program. 3 o'clock, the bell rings. We have staff there to pick up students at the classroom. We provide a healthy snack. After that, we provide an hour of homework, so we definitely create an environment for students to really take the time to do homework and offer support with our staff to make sure the homework is done and understood. After that, we go into our enrichment, where here we have cooking class. Other enrichments include arts and crafts, science, music, and dance. After that, we have our physical activity. We were required to do at least 30 minutes of physical activity each day, and so that's usually moderate to vigorous activity, so not just free play, but actually going out and doing relay races, learning how to be fit and stay active. After that, we'll have our pickup time at 6 p.m. And so, again, our flow basically with those three components, which is the academic support, skill building, and physical activity. And so that's what you'll see throughout all our programs. So let's see, so highlighting the school year last year. So first we moved into this beautiful facility. So this has allowed us to spread out, take advantage of different rooms and access to the entire building. So that way we can provide a wider range of activities. As I mentioned, the healthy snacks, we partnered with Revolution Foods to provide healthy meals. And so with that, they always provide us a fresh fruit, a whole grain, so that could be apples and a whole grain muffin. And so that even allows us to be able to have conversation at the table about how to fuel your body and how to be healthy. The wellness grant, so we received a wellness grant from the NPRA and the Walmart Foundation. And so with that, the main purpose of that was to increase the nutrition education within our after-school program. And so with those funds, we were able to build the garden you see outside. We started garden education classes. We hired the garden teacher so she can make a streamlined garden education classes in after school. We were able to start a Food of the Month program where each month we highlight 2 different food items to where we're, taste tests and different activities, again, about how to eat healthy. We became a satellite partner to Cooking Matters, which trained our staff to conduct cooking classes for youth and teens. And so we now can do that in-house throughout the year with our students. We also were able to create a new food and beverage policy where, again, we were able to really just create a whole culture of wellness. And so that also goes into play with environmental health as well. And so my nickname, we all have camp names, and I'm sugar-free. And so we've done a really good job at really trying to create a culture of wellness here. The main part of the grant was also to make sure we had some sustainability. So regardless of being able to get the grant again, we will be able to still continue our programs. We also implemented enrichment clubs, and so this was enrichment clubs led by staff. So we have a very diverse staff with many talents and interests, and so they're able to create programming where students can vote to make sure that they're interested in whatever their skills that they would like to learn. And so we've been able to do that. Some of the clubs have been science, painting, sports, fitness, origami, music, anything we can kind of think of to really spark creativity and expose them to new skills. Let's see. And we've also partnered with a few community organizations. So we have Taekwondo throughout the year. We have Head Over Heels, which is down the street, so they can do gymnastics and body coordination movements. We also partnered with California Poets in Schools, and we were also able to publish our own poetry book. And so it is important for them to be able to showcase their skills, and so we're continuing to provide and partner with organizations that will allow us to do that. So with our ACES grant, we are required to conduct surveys each year. And so this is a survey that we chose the parent survey to expose here as far as the top 5 responses. And you should see the left column here was 15-16, so 2015-2016 to the results of 2016-27, and you can see some major increases. So the first, the after-school program staff care about my child. So of course we're high throughout. The after-school program staff are able to help my child with things like homework, so you can see that increase from 77 to 89%. My child has come home excited about things they are doing in the after-school program. That is an amazing jump from 73 to 95%. The after-school program offers my child activities that relate to their interests, and of course that's a big boost from our enrichment clubs. My child learns new things in after school with the after-school program, and so again that's a big boost, and so that definitely goes to show that we're being more intentional with the activities that we provide. And also we survey staff, teachers, and students, and also parents. So this is just a quick glimpse, but we're doing that each year to make sure we're improving the program. Okay, so for the future, so the next school year, we have identified 4 items for our quality improvement plan. And again, this is also a requirement for the grant to make sure we're continuing to improve each year. And so the first one, we have quality staff. And so this is just to improve the overall quality of our staff through ongoing trainings, through coaching, through more in-depth hiring process, where staff have to, provide demonstrations and show just their interest in the skills that they can provide for their children. We have the diversity, access, and equity. So with this one, we just want to make sure we have a diverse staff that reflects the community, and we want to celebrate differences. And so our goals are to provide training for staff and then just different activities to also celebrate the differences of us as a community. The next one, we have skill building. And so this one we had last year as well, and so you can see our survey results reflect that. And so we're just committed to designing meaningful activities for the students to develop real skills. And we do that through partnerships, and we also do that through our enrichment clubs throughout the year. The newest one that we're adding would be collaborative partnerships. And so this one's very important, being on the same campus. We want to focus on strengthening the connection with the school day. And so we want to do that with getting teachers involved in improving communication and finding ways to be a better support. So academic support is really going to be a focus for us, and that definitely starts with communication with teachers and principals. Some of the partners that we're looking to bring in next year would again bring in Taekwondo. The California Poets did very well. Circle Labs, which I'll get into, Scientific Adventures, and Kala Arts. All right, so summer. So for summer, we are week 7 into summer right now. We have an average of 161 kids per week. Our highest week was week 5 at 179 campers. We have 9 weeks of program, so we have no gaps in care, so we're able to definitely take care of the community and their needs. We have 111 families on sliding scale. On week 7 is our week now. We have 61 residents and 107 non-residents. We do weekly field trips. We have weekly themes to really tie in everything that we do. And so some trips we've had the Children's Discovery Museum, the A's Game, California Academy of Science, and the Tech Museum. Let's see. We also we're able to swim weekly in our pool here, so that's very convenient here. We employ 30 recreation leaders. We have 12 leaders in training from ages 15 to 17. We have one Emory High School student now in the leadership and training, and we'll definitely make sure that that increases next year since we're on the exact same campus. And so here's a typical day of summer camp. We start our AM care 7:30 a.m. For drop-off, it's more of an AM care, quiet games, a little AM snack. 9 a.m., we have camp songs. 10 a.m., we have different rotations of enrichment activities. So we have scientific adventure experiments. After that, we have lunch. We partner with Oakland Summer Mills, very similar. They use the same contractor of Revolution Foods, so it's the same still healthy meals that go with our food and beverage guidelines. After that, we'll have swimming. Then we'll have arts and crafts, activities, and group games. And we definitely rotate based on themes, based on activities and age range. And after that long day, we definitely make sure they go home tired and happy and ready for the next day. So some of our summer partnerships, I really think we've had a great summer with Scientific Adventures. They bring in weekly experiments for our students. So this is very STEM-based. So we have activities like parachute science, building catapults, engineering and product design challenges. We have Circle Labs. Circle Labs, they've brought in math games throughout the summer, like multiplication, tic-tac-toe, target addition, just fun ways, fun games in the summertime to definitely hit on the summer learning loss, and we'll continue to improve on that. The middle school students were able to do a week of coding workshops, and they're also meeting different scientists and learning about science careers. Kala Arts has come in. They are actually still here as well. They are doing weekly art activities to where they're teaching skills. So not just arts and crafts, but really teaching skills. Some activities, they have printmaking, painting, mixed media sculptures, clay. So they're really getting into drawing and learning just the world of arts. We're also partnered with the YEP, so Youth Employment Partnership. They provide youth with internships and on-job training. And so we have a ton of youth workers, and so we're really helping and coaching and guiding them to hopefully, be able to add to the community and be rec leaders in the future while in school. So for upcoming events, so we have the first day of school, we have August 22nd, so we're right there in action for after-school program. We are also providing day camps, So schools out camps for professional development days for teachers, to also provide that support for the community as well and the families. We offer Parent Night Out, which is a very successful program where we have monthly, where from 6 to 10 o'clock, students are able to stay, so parents can, come get them later. They can take care of errands, have a nice night out, but we basically provide service from 3 to 10 p.m. at night here at the ECCL. We also have the Thanksgiving break camp, so November 20th and the 22nd. Then we also do the winter break camp, December 18th to the 22nd, and then the 27th through the 29th. And so we're definitely here to provide year-round programs, always looking to improve and really just help provide a good future for the youth here.
Do you have any clarifying questions?
Yeah, clarifying questions.
I have one. First,
Before that, I'd like to
My
offer
apologies.
one clarifying point. Earlier in the presentation, we said that there was something like 30-something residents that were participating in the after-school program. That number is actually 76. We revised the presentation after, and the edit didn't take for whatever reason. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge Asia for all her hard work on both of these programs. It's really her heart and soul, and she's been a great value, great asset to the city. So thank you, Asia, for all your hard work.
Thank you. Very much.
I'd also like to acknowledge the school district for facilitating the bringing the scientific adventures for girls as well as Circle Labs. Those programs are sponsored by Wareham Development, but we were able to bring them to the after-school program and the summer camp through the school district. So thank you, John, and thank you to the school district for that. I'd also like to acknowledge the city of Emeryville because the Kala Arts program is being funded in part by the Community Grants program. And I'd also like to further thank the school district because much of the funding for the after-school program is funded through the ACES grant, California Prop 49 funds, which the school district manages and funnels to the city to fund the program. So thank you very much.
Any clarifying questions?
Yes, absolutely. First, I wanted to thank you for your great work. I saw great improvements between last year and this year. Congratulations. I'd love to learn, how did you guys do that?
I think we started to be more intentional with the activities that we provided with Youth Voice and really providing and partnering with CalSAC for staff training. And so we were able to really show just what after school should look like and just motivate our staff to just provide and understand the value. I think sometimes after school gets, okay, we're just kind of babysitting and playing, but we really put in the work into the program. We also communicate more with parents, letting them know what's going on. We have great staff that communicate to parents on their development. And we also, it does help too to have some students, some of our staff actually work with the school day as well. And so that way we just kind of have more of a seamless flow within the after school to know what's needed.
That's great work. Congratulations.
Could I ask a little bit more about the age range? Is there a cutoff point that you find people stop sending kids to aftercare, and is there a more robust age group?
So we service right now K through 8th grade. So our middle school program is a little smaller because the students are in other sports and stay home. So our bulk is really K through 5, but then we also have a nice age range of middle schoolers as well.
And then how do parents connect with the after-school program? Do they reach out to you? Do you reach out to them? How do they sign up? What's the process of engaging parents into the aftercare program?
So parents know that we're here. We have advertisement. We show up to different school events and have flyers. So they know we have a presence. We're in our activity guides. So we definitely pass out materials to let them know what we're doing. And we also kind of have a presence at the school as well. And so parents, we definitely fill up fast because parents, they definitely need that care. And so I think it's more they know we're here. And I don't know if you want to add to that.
And then can you elaborate a little bit on the sliding scale and how economical it is for parents to send their kids to after school?
You want to answer that?
So the sliding scale program was implemented by the city a few years ago, and the idea was to make after-school care accessible to as many families as possible. So in terms of it being economical, are you asking the specific prices of, we use the Alameda County HUD income limits to determine eligibility. And so there's basically three categories. There's very low income, extremely low income, and low income, and that's defined as 30, 50, and 80% of Alameda County's median income. And we take the standard fee for the after-school program and we make it 30, 50, or 80% of the full price fee. So we are trying to make it fair in that regard.
And what is the full price?
Oh, it just changed. Do you know what it is off the top of your head? I think it's $145 for first through fifth grade, I believe, or first through sixth grade, and slightly more than that for kindergarten because they have more hours of service. And then teens are they're only $28 per month.
Thank you.
If not too much overhead, is it possible to share the survey results filtered by Emeryville residents?
Did we collect that data?
Do you collect
I don't
that
know
data?
that we collected that data, did we?
No.
For the survey? For the after-school program? Yeah. Oh, we did? Okay. Yeah, we can supply that.
If not too much overhead, appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Any additional clarifying questions? Seeing none, any public comment?
Hello, I'm Betsy Cooley, resident. I just wanted to say that as a member of the Parks, former member of the Parks and Recreation Committee, the recreation aspect of it, we received reports over a number of years about what was going on with the recreation department, and it's really, I think it's really impressive the progress that's been made, and I just wanted to thank everybody for their hard work. We've really done a great job. Thanks. And thanks for everybody's follow-up on the P-bit. I really appreciate that also. Thank you.
Here's a way that you can determine, you can measure how well you're doing running the meetings. If you find very little discussion happening after public comments, but a lot of clarifying questions happening before public comments, that means you're doing a bad job running the meeting. Because the substantive debate is supposed to be happening after the public comments. And the reason is because we're supposed to be at least given the impression that we're here for a reason other than just, twiddling our thumbs. We like the idea that we could come up here and say something and it could possibly make a difference rather than have just be like, words entering the ether. So that's a way to measure. If a lot of discussion happens after public comment, well, that means you've done a good job. Anyway, now on to the issue here. My daughter goes to the summer camp here at ECCL. She's 12. I heard like kind of a glowing reports here, except I'm sorry to report, my daughter tells me and my wife the reports aren't so glowing. As a matter of fact, she hates the summer camp, she tells me. She's bored to tears, and then that's kind of hard to quantify, a 12-year-old being bored. You can't say because of that there's something being done that's not right. However, there is something that she reports virtually every day that is sort of upsetting. She says that the camp leaders are disciplining the children. And my daughter tells me, and this is happening every day, and the discipline is, sort of, have to like sit down and write stuff or whatever, just stuff that they don't like to do, sit quietly, not do anything. She says that they're being disciplined virtually every day, and they're being disciplined for actions of anybody in the entire group. So one student or one child makes some sort of faux pas, and then they all have to be punished, and the punishment usually is sort of pretty uncomfortable for her. So my daughter doesn't like it.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Any additional public comment? Any further discussion from the committee?
Madam Chair, so I have a first grader who is in after-school care and is currently attending summer camp. And he tells me he loves it. He unsolicited. He comes home and says, "Mom, he calls it school. It's not school. I love school. I get to make things. I get to do this. He also doesn't have to learn as much as he does during the regular school year.
It's more fun school.
Well, yes, it's fun school. But he has a very strong connection with the staff and with the other children. And I want to thank staff for making this a safe, enjoyable learning environment where he's getting so much enrichment. And he, to the point where his grandmother offered him a day off to eat fast food and buy toys, and he said, no, I am going to go to school and claim my prize that I got for cleaning up yesterday, which was, probably a pencil. And that's how much he loves coming here. And I'm an Emeryville parent, for the record.
Wonderful. That's wonderful to hear that experience. Any additional discussion?
So, yeah, I asked for this to be on the agenda, and I actually was going to present on it, but I saw Brad's presentation and realized that I was not going to do one nearly that good, so I backed off. Mine was much more numbers focused. And the reason I asked for it to be on here is I feel like we sit at these meetings and we talk about the disconnect between the school program and the after-school program. And I won't talk camp. My son's going to go next week. He's going to complain about it. That's a reflection of him, not the program. Sorry, I got sidetracked there. The disconnect between the school program and the after-school program. And I think it's really important that this body in particular understand that they're the same students. They come and they're there all day. And, I looked at the numbers over the last 3 years, and it's amazing how hand-in-hand enrollment in the district goes with enrollment in the after-school program. Last year, 14 fewer kids enrolled in Annie Yates than the year prior, 15 fewer kids enrolled in after-school programs than the year prior. And, I looked at it by grade. It mirrors it perfectly. Where enrollment increased at Annie Yates at a particular grade, enrollment in aftercare increased. Where enrollment decreased in aftercare. And I think that's just really shows how when parents shop for a school, that aftercare is a critical piece. And so, I think it's really important that this idea that we're competing for resources is moved aside, because they are the resources. The kids generate the funds for both programs, and without one you wouldn't have the other. And I just ran some quick numbers. EUSD gets about $11,000 a kid, and so without the rec program, I think it's safe to say you'd probably lose 1/5 of the kids. They would look for a school with an aftercare program, and that works out to $286,000 in 1 year, and that would be a huge impact. So I want to make sure that that's the message, is these are our kids. This is a shared process. One goes with the other. Member Medina told the story the other day about how that was her life, is taking care of, going to school, after school. And that's the story in our world. And I think it's a story in most parents in towns mode. 76 families in Emeryville take advantage of aftercare, and that's a huge chunk. It's 1 out of every 5 kids that goes to the school, and it's about 1 out of every 5 kids that lives in Emeryville. There are about 600 school-age kids in Emeryville, or there were in 2010. It could change. So thank you, and thank you for your presentation. That was awesome, and I apologize for my son in advance for next week. So.
Any additional discussion?
More of a suggestion, perhaps, related to the survey again. If it does not exist, we'd love to see an open-ended question around what type of activities parents or even kids would like to see being added to the program, as a way of checks and balances for seeing what the interest is. And then also, if it does not exist already, if we could add a question about whether the kids are enrolled in ECCL or not. If it does not exist, we'd love to see that as well. Thank you.
I'm sorry, were you asking about aftercare? Because it was 100% when I asked. Was that not accurate, that 100% of the kids in after-school programs are in ECCL?
Yes.
So, or are you talking about summer?
Both.
Both? Okay. I don't know about the summer numbers, but I know I asked the same one about aftercare.
I'd love to see those numbers being presented as,
Yeah.
as part of, it's definitely interest in that.
And I just want to point out, your survey shows sample size matters. 20 versus 60 respondents, you'll begin to average out the unhappy people. So well done on that.
All right, thank you very much. We will now move on to item 6.4, gym name. Council Member Pats.
Yep. Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. So. Maybe I won't get it. Oh, there's the button I'm looking for. Okay, so a little background. Last year, while I was on the school board, I thought it'd be a great idea to name the gym after a particular resident or particular teacher in Emeryville. And so I started to form a committee. There were some challenges finding members, and then my work took over my world, and I really let the ball drop, and I've been feeling guilty about that ever since, that I wasn't able to get the community involved and sit down and achieve my goal. And I like to start at the end, so here's my proposal. I'd like to name the ECCL gym after popular and wrongly fired gym teacher Steve Dane. And so I'm sure the first question anybody here, except maybe Member Donahue, is who was Steve Dane? Steve Dane was a popular girls' PE teacher. Sorry. Was a popular PE teacher, ran the school athletic program for girls, was a real champion for that, and transitioned from being female to male. I think the original name was Doris, but is now known as Steve Dane. Went on leave to transition in the 70s, came back, was welcomed back by fellow teachers and by families, but the superintendent, in all their wisdom, fired Mr. Dane. And so he sued, won the right to his position back, and because of the particular nature of the 70s, the board, in their infinite wisdom, followed the superintendent's advice and fired him again, this time for wrongful use of leave. And this is a particularly important issue to me. I have a fair number of friends in the transgender community. I have followed the struggle, and this is very timely. I felt bad asking one more thing of the school board tonight, but again, as I stand up here, just last week, the person in the White House lashed out against people, transgendered community, and won't let them serve in the military. And so it just goes to show that this bigotry and bias is still with us. And so this is my ask is going to be that we name the gym. I went ahead and just got some information from the local papers on Mr. Dane, and when I say he was popular, he was. There was, of course, a small group who didn't know how to deal with someone who had transitioned, but this is the Bay Area, and a beloved teacher. Kids are smarter than their parents. Miss Juanita Forrester, the teacher who was the head of ETA at the time, argued that Mr. Dane should have his job back. And I don't like to read slides to people, so this was printed out for you. I thought this was particularly telling. I love the fact that even back in the day, this was a local blog, Berkeley Barb. So now we've had Berkeley Barb followed by the Secret News, the Evil Eye, and the Tatler. So it's a long tradition in the East Bay. But there's a great article, sort of interview with Mr. Dane. Even the Chronicle, in their look back section, it goes on to do it. And again, fired not because they were a poor teacher, not because the parents were outraged, but for wrongful use of sick leave. And if you're in the wrong body, you feel unhealthy, and you need to fix that and go get medical care. So eventually Mr. Dane ran out of funds and had to stop fighting, and so went on to be a successful local community college professor. people always ask me, why is this person not more famous? You'd think it would be on all the news. I don't know if you remember Renee Richards. I'm speaking to people who weren't around, but a U.S. tennis player stole the thunder from Emeryville, and so that was really the headline. There's a great YouTube link you can click on if you want to hear Steve speak. Next steps, I know very well EOSD has a policy on naming a building after people. I won't read you your policy. I had it in here and took it out. You can form a committee, follow the policy, and name the gym. Or, because it's your policy, you can go right to it and say, you know what, let's do this. I think I'm going to ask my council members to give a vote of support for this idea, because I think it's a great idea to right a wrong. It's very rare that we get to do that. And the nice part of this is, I think, given that this is the Bay Area, we can right a wrong and we can benefit from it. I think we can really fundraise around the idea of naming the gym after Mr. Dane. I know I would contribute. I know my neighbors would. I thought we have a nice scoreboard in there. I think it's a historical one. But we could go with a nice video scoreboard if we raise enough money. And I think we would get a lot of community members to come out and sponsor this. You know, so that's my ask. And this is my failing as a graphic designer. But I just have this image of a very small, Emory Unified. We can have the Spartans. It's just a very small, let's get Mr. Yes, Stephen Dane. So anyways, that's my pitch to you guys. You can go right to public comment. I'm going to sit down.
Did anyone have any clarifying questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to ask Christian if there are other people in the short list of names that you were considering, or is this the only candidate?
I think naming opportunities are there in general. I've had a lot of thoughts about things. But for the gym in particular, this was one that was very personal to both a former council member and myself when she explained it to me, because I did not know about Mr. Dane, and so I spent a lot of time reading about it. And so I've not been looking. I'm not big on naming things after people in general. I had some thoughts for naming the high school, and it was pointed out to me you want to pick people who are no longer alive. And so unfortunately Mr. Dane passed a few years back, so that fits the bill. But no, for the gym itself, I do not have a short list of names, and I'd be welcome to hear what other people think, but this is the one that I feel really would put Emory High School and Emeryville and really speak to the community. And more importantly, it really shows, I hope, how far we've come in 30 years. Again, I'm stuck by last week and the current state of things, because I feel like we've gone back 30 years, not forward. And so I'd like to just be that light in the Bay Area that says this is what we stand for and what we want to do. And I just think that I'm sorry, I'm going to get emotional. So.
Thanks. And a quick follow-up. I think you're privileged to probably be familiar with both of the policies of the district and city council. Have you given any thought about how to reconcile the differences in the policies? The policies were shared, so I was able to quickly review them, and I saw some differences. I'd love to get your thoughts how to reconcile both.
I'm as a council and as a board, policies are there to be followed, and I'm a big supporter of that. And I think if you're going to move away from them, as long as you acknowledge it, make a motion to do something different, you can. My understanding is it's your building, and so we're just leasing it, and so and I think there's a three-way lease there, so I get confused. But I think ultimately the naming rights reside with the district. I don't think that we as a tenant would have the ability to name it. So I could be wrong on that, but I think either way it has to go back to both councils, or should go back to both bodies for discussion and decision. And if it's your pleasure, as long as you acknowledge that you're deviating from the policy, and it's sort of a multi-step process. You sort of acknowledge it, make a motion to do it, and then do it, not do it all at once. So that's my comment on that.
Thanks.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, public comment?
Betsy Cooley, and I would support that. I think that's a great idea.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a totally uplifting story. Correcting a past wrong is really an important component. I am like, I'm just really saddened to hear about this man that is now no longer with us. It would be wonderful to have him be here, to be able to see the gym named after him. I mean, after all, that's where he spent all of his time, here at the Emory High School in the gym. And then to be fired just because he, transitioned from female to male is, it's a black mark on Emory Unified, and it's a black mark on Emeryville. And this is the easiest thing in the world for us to do. The easiest right or wrong to right. We can write this so easily for almost no money. Should be no controversy here. I think we have to do this. I mean, morally and ethically, we have to do this. I think it's an awesomely great idea. I'm not sure if Christian came up with the idea or you alluded to a former council member. Whoever it was, I think it was a great idea. I think we should actually go farther. I think instead of just a name up there, I think we should have on the gym, we should have a plaque. We should, maybe we can get community to pitch in money for a bronze plaque to explaining who Mr. Daines was, or Mr. Dane, and to have a plaque in addition to his name up in the gym. Because I think it's a big point of pride, or should be a point of pride for the district and for the city. And we should move forward and correct this wrong. And I think it's a really good thing to hear something positive coming out of this body. And I thank Mr. Pats for bringing this to us. And I think it behooves us to do this. Thank you very much.
Judy Timmel, a resident. Yes, I'm in agreement. It's an enlightened idea. I think time has come. It shows both who we were and who we are now, and I fully support. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment?
I'd like to add that I'd have to bring up one other name to be considered. That a family reached out to us because of our old rec center, which was named after Robert Savage. I'm not saying the gym needs to be named after him, but I think considering Robert Savage, who was one of the previous council member and also instrumental in getting funding for community services department and the rec center. So I think the family reached out to us, and the rec center eventually will be removed, the old rec center. So if we could reconsider his name to be somewhere else, maybe at ECCO.
Yeah, I've shared that thought, and I actually thought that the pool, which is a closer city sort of entity, but again, I think still is. I always forget if the pool is the cities or the schools, but either way, I actually thought the pool was a nice for Mr. Savage.
Yeah.
Any additional discussion from the committee?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Councilmember Pats for bringing this up. I think it is a fantastic idea. I fully support it. I think that often institutions have recently found themselves really behind the curve in terms of naming, are often pressured by students in really embarrassing news articles recently to remove plaques or names that bring up slavery, racism, homophobia, other assorted forms of bigotry. And we have an opportunity here to not just redress the past wrong, but to share and demonstrate our values as a city, as a school district with our students. And this is a timely value. In addition to what the current federal administration is doing, UCLA released a study last year where 30% of trans youth self-reported a suicide attempt, 42% self-reported self-injury. And those are shocking numbers. Later in life, trans youth will face much higher rates of violence, especially murder of trans women, specifically trans women of color, and denial of basic health care and human rights, inability to even get a driver's license that adequately reflects who you are in many states. And I think this is something we can do as a community to demonstrate values and really help lead in this. And I think it's absolutely right. This is something we could fundraise and rally around. I'll kick in some cash. I thank you for bringing this forward, and I hope that we can make this happen.
Chair. I think this is a compelling and timely ask, and I would love to see this come back to City Council for consideration and how we can support.
And I would also like to come back to school board. I also am wondering if a naming committee might be in order if we do want to consider other areas and other places that would be appropriate to name after people.
Any additional discussion?
The storytelling capabilities of plaques can be exceptional. I mean, more than giant letters in the sky on the top of a building. I think you could have a compelling story. You could have a compelling story right where people can see it that could be easily maintained, and it could be permanent. So I think that if we look at a budget that has, you know, front and center narration, I think would be best of how to spend money on it, in my opinion. And that's my only comment.
Yes, Dr. Rubio.
I just wanted to thank Member Pats. I think it's great. Member Pats, I remember this coming and talking about it a couple years back, and I just want to say thank you also. I think it's an inspiring story, and I appreciate, from my view, that you bringing it back.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I think this also warrants further discussion at the future board meeting. Where we've been adding a lot lately, but sometime in maybe the next month or so, I'd like to see this come back as well. All right, with that, we will move on to item 6.5, Emeryville Center of Community Life Operations and Maintenance Budget. Mr. Donahue.
I put this on our agenda partly for myself to understand how our relationship is between our city and our district, and I'm pleased that we get back a report on how the monies are projected. And I just want to say that this document that Carolyn shared with me today is very clarifying about the relationship between the city and the school district. And it clearly enumerates what our responsibilities are and how the funds are to be assessed for who's going to pay who's going to do what, when some program does more, how we account for that in it. And I just am reassured that we have some kind of clarity in this August 6, 2014 document, which Carolyn has emailed all of us, and I have printed here. And so it's well thought out. It talks about base rates for how the accounting goes, and then how, if the programs change, how that change would be calculated, and what our responsibilities are. So first of all, I just want to say I brought this forward partly because I was concerned about lack of clarity, and now I just want to say that I'm much reassured in our documents and the way things are. And Pedro, I'm pleased to see that you have an update.
Yes, we received an update from Doris Hu from the school district, who can answer questions specifics to the budget, what's estimated actuals for 16-17 and what's proposed for 17-18. So if you have questions on any line items, she should be able to answer it for you. And I can
Hi, good evening. My name is Doris Hu. I'm the fiscal director at Emory Unified School District. I'm here tonight to try to go over the ECCL operations and maintenance budget for 16-17, which is the last school fiscal year. So under column E, which is for reference only, is showing you the 15-16 JOA Exhibit F2 estimated budget. And again, this column is for reference only. And then the next column is show you the original budget for 16-17. Again, budget is a moving numbers. These numbers will change over the year to match the situations. So there are always 2 times in a year that a school can update their operational budget. And the first one is the first interim, which is the cutoff is October 31st, 2016. And then the next column, column H, is showing you the second interim. The cutoff was January 31st, 2017. And then the highlighted column is now what we are working on right now on closing out the last fiscal year book. And this column shows you the estimated actuals. So again, this column, the numbers still will be changing because we have not closed out the school 16-17 fiscal book yet. And then the column next to the estimated actuals is the original budget for 17-18. And this was adopted by the board back in June. But with more information coming into the business office, there will be change coming up in the first interim, which is October 31st, 2017, updating the original budget for fiscal year 17-18. So are there any questions regarding this O&M budget?
I have questions. Thanks, Dora. I have a few questions for you. First, I realize that the estimated actuals for 16-17 are not final. When will they be final?
By law, we have to turn in the fiscal book to the county office by September 1st. So somewhere, actually by September 15th, not September 1st. So it will be presented to the board in the first meeting in September.
Okay, so my first ask after this, I have a couple more questions, would be for this committee to ask for the final actuals for 16-17 to come back to the October meeting just for a comparison to see where we landed, because there's still estimates for the year. My second question is the 3 lines across the chart in a row, which I can't read the letter or number scheme on the Excel sheet on that screen, and we don't have them for our benefit. But they, on the sheet, they are listed as classified substitutes, supervisor and administrative salaries, other classified salaries, and other classified hourly, those 4 in a row. And I just make an observation and ask a question about them collectively. I see that the original budget for 16-17 budgeted only $7,500 for substitutes, and now you're estimating $39,000 will have been spent on substitutes. So my first question will be, why do we have a massive increase in substitutes? My second question is about the third of those 4 lists, which is other classified salaries. You did not originally budget anything for it, and then at both interims you moved to a very specific number of $23,927, and now it's not included at all at the end. So I'm trying to figure out why at both estimated intervals we anticipated other classified salaries and now they're gone. And then the third question is the same question for the next category. That was a line item that had 7248, and it's now no longer estimated to be a final budget item. And then finally, I matched this with employee benefits, which is the column I didn't mention originally, but is right below that, where we had an initial budget of $213,000 for employee benefits, and now we're looking at $30,000 less at $183,000 being spent. So I'm just looking to understand what the situation is between the intersection of these numbers, because these are the ones that, for the most part, changed. And I will also just flag that there's near the bottom, other services and operating expenditures. There's suddenly a line item for $43,000 in the final budget that appears nowhere before that. So I'm wondering how those, if someone could explain how those all interplay.
Okay, let me answer them one by one. I believe the first question is regarding the classified sub. During 16-17, we do have 4 3.5 full-time custodians position. But during 16-17, apparently one custodian was on paid leave. And because of the operation needs, we have to call in more custodian sub. So that's the reason why you are seeing more money gone into the classified sub budget, because we are hiring more sub to meet the ECCRO needs. And then the second question, I believe you're talking about the other classified salaries, right?
Yeah, the line
and
item
that particular budget item is related to the security person that we hire at the school district. And apparently after the budget meeting with the city staff and also with the superintendent's office, we realized that that security person is only serving the high school. So that's the reason why we have to take it out from the O&M budget. Since it's only serving the high school, it should not be included in the O&M budget where cities should be paying part of the share. And then the next question is regarding the other classified hourly. It's the same thing in the $7,000 is pretty well is the classified people that we hired to do security purposes, turning in timesheets. So that's the reason why we take it out at the estimated actuals. And then
the other services and operating expenses?
Okay, the last question is regarding the $42,989 that's showing up under other services and operating expenses. This is the PBIT tax assessment that we just realized, going over this memo from the city, we realized that the PBIT actually should be included in the O&M budget. That's the reason why we added on when we are closing out the book.
So is the PBID being split then between the city and the schools for this property?
At a percentage of 29%.
29 to 671?
The city's share is 29%.
Okay. Thank you for that. It was very helpful, Dora. So my next question is, and if others have questions, I don't have to monopolize this time. I have one more, and then I can break for those who have others. My last one is just in the total expenditures column, you have an estimated actual for 16-17 of 1.124. For the original budget next year, you have 1.227. General budget practices are that your opening budget for a fiscal year is based on what you think your final budget will be for the prior year, unless you're expecting an anticipated change. So my question is, are you anticipating that you will end up that this estimated actual will actually be 1.227 for 16-17 at the end, or are you anticipating a change in cost that's not been discussed already that will lead to an inflation in the budget for next year?
For 16-17, I will anticipate the actual closing of the O&M to be very close to the 1.124. I do not expect to see any more maintenance bills coming in. But at the same time, I'm conservative to say I haven't done all the closing, so I will see some changes, maybe 1 or 2 bills coming in to add on the O&M charges. And regarding for the 17-18 original budget, right now I'm positive, confident to say to you, some of the budget line items that you see right now back in June, it's not going to show up in the first interim. One line item is the other classified salary, the security person, that $137,000 on the 17-18 original budget, that will be gone.
Well, you mean the 25,000? That's what the others. That's this 137 is supervisors, I believe.
Oh, I'm sorry. The 25,125.
I was going to say if you're letting all the supervisors go,
you were good right
we can
until
have a
then,
different
Dora. You're doing
conversation.
great, right into that spot.
That security person, that budget will be disappear in the first interim under the O&M.
Okay, so that would take out between 124 and 227, the 1.227. If you take that 27 out, we still have about an $80,000 difference. So I'm just wondering what, without delving into all your math, I mean, all your other services and operating expenditures are no longer on the sheet as well for next year. So I'm looking at somewhere there's $100,000 in changes, and I'm just trying to figure out where that is exactly, because I see it.
Employee benefits is
Employee
up
benefits, it looks like about half of it is there. Okay.
And they're
All
also
right.
expecting less income.
And there's some downgrade in income. Okay, so.
But again, the PBIP, the 42,000 will be back on in the, maybe not quite 42,000, whatever the PBIP that we have to put in for the 17, 18, it will be there in the first interim.
Okay, thank you for this budget.
Any other clarifying questions?
Just one more. I might have missed the explanation for this, Dora, but under employee benefits, Member Bowders mentioned that in the JOA 2015-2016 estimate, there was 197,000, and then over to the estimated actuals, we're actually at 183. So just if you can explain that decrease, that's the employee benefits line.
Okay, that, the employee benefits, including all the fringe benefits, which is the CalPERS, the FICA, the Medicare, the SUI, the workers' comp, and also the health and welfare. So that will be lumped all under employee benefits. The reason you're seeing a little bit drop on the 16, 17 estimated actuals, because the more sub that you use, they are not under CalPERS. But if you hire a position person, right away that person is covered by CalPERS, and we have to pay into PERS.
Any public comment?
I still have a, sorry.
My apologies.
Quick question for you. John, thank you for all your questions. You saved me a lot of questions. And I know the rest of the board would appreciate that. So I only have one question, Dora, for you. Thank you so much for putting this together. My comment is around network and internet. I see that being available in the interim budgets, but not on the estimated actuals for the year. And then it comes back at twice the amount of the first interims. I'd love to get more context on that.
Okay, this one actually is related to the network that provided by the ACA-OE. And for 16, 17, I was instructed by the superintendent office to take out that charge from the O&M budget to the building fund. So Dr. John Rubio, would you want to add on to this?
Yeah, basically coming into the building, and we had the opportunity to use construction funds to set the network up, and so we decided to do that to save both entities the money that from our other budgets for this 16-17 year, and that's why you also will notice that it does come back next year for our services from Alameda County Office of Education, AT&T Fiber.
I appreciate that context. And may I ask, why are they coming back at twice the amount that we previously estimated?
My guess is that some of the 33,000 may have been an estimate just for the AT&T bills and did not include the county bills. So I don't recall the specific details, but that amount is approximately, looks correct to me, that what the county charges us.
But we're going to find out from the ACOE in more detail how much exactly that we will see, and then we will update that budget line in the first interim.
Thanks again, Dora.
I have a couple of questions, and so I'll follow up on the internet one. I thought we were on separate networks here, that we didn't use the school's internet.
That is correct for the city offices, but then the third parties are connecting to the rest of ECCO services there. So we coordinated that use into the O&M.
And it's part of maintenance of operations to run the site, to have the network up. So whether it's the after-school staff using the classrooms and being on the network, whether it's third-party rentals, it's part of us running the entire facility, having a network. So
Right.
you're correct, though.
But the after-school program doesn't use it.
Staff, I think, may.
Yeah, for the after-school program, I don't think we have a lot of use that we use their network, but third-party rentals do connect into the system here that's on the school side of the programs.
So again, but that's not a city program. I get that.
Correct.
It's just, I'm not hearing the cities using that network. third-party rentals are, but it's not coming out of the city. The city's not using it. And then my other question is, and I've been looking to see whether or not admin salaries can be a part of what is considered O&M. And so I also noticed that it goes from 88,000 estimated, we're up to 50,000 over that, which seems like a very large increase for admin salaries that I don't understand why we're paying admin salaries. So I didn't see that in the JOA.
Right now, under the O&M budget, the admin salaries are including the director of maintenance, the full-time 100%, and also the director of fiscal services, which is at 30%. And the total cost right now is $133,000 for both.
For both. Okay, so I didn't see that, and it seems to me to be an expense that, just seems an odd expense for us to be paying for your management team.
It is included as one of the charges that can be part of the O&M is the person responsible for the financial report. That was broken down in that report. That was broken down in the city council report. It does allow for that expenditure. It also would allow that we might revisit in the future is our staff that we mainly deals with third-party rentals and bringing those in, so that can be something that we might look back at adding in, but it does allow for them to add a percentage from finance for managing the O&M.
A percentage?
It allows to charge towards it. It doesn't specifically speak to it, and they've chosen 30% of the finance director's salary.
Okay, but about 100% of the maintenance and operations.
Correct.
Any additional clarifying questions? Let's move to public comment if there's any. Seeing none, any further discussion?
Thank you, Dora. Yeah,
Thank
you. But you might stay and answer a question I have. There's a section of our agreement that has to do with replacement reserves, meaning that everything around us is degrading at a certain rate, and we should be having some money being put aside, anticipating our facility wearing out. And is there a replacement reserve budget that the district has, and does the city have a replacement reserve amount?
Okay.
I'll speak to it. Actually, in
Use the
the
microphone.
JOA, I'm sorry, in the JOA exhibit F4, it talks about a capital replacement schedule, and there is a share that the city and the district pay into a fund. The city share for capital replacement is 23%, and the school district 77%. In the first 5 years, $100,000 is supposed to go into it, and it starts increasing over the 50-year lifespan. I believe it's going to be $22 million that needs to go into the capital replacement schedule or program.
Okay, when are the first funds supposed to be added to this?
We just put in a check voucher to pay over $4,000 from the city share, and the rest of it, I don't know when the school district will be putting that in.
The 16-17 capital reserve, the city share is about $4,600. And I'm expecting to see a check pretty soon, right, from the city. But technically, under the JOA, it did spell out it's supposed to be a semi-annual deposit. One in January 1st, and then the second one is in June 1st.
But has the district put money into the account?
Once I close out the book, yes, it will be, we will be putting in the 71% share of the capital reserve in a separate bucket to hold the capital reserve.
Okay,
money.
thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, we will move to item 6.6, Emeryville Center of Community Life Warranty, and that is with Dr. Rubio and Council Member Bowders.
Do you want me to proceed?
As the City Council and School Board knows, we had recently discovered that the overall ECCL project for any items that don't have a longer warranty is, and we appreciate Member Marion pointing out that there are a number of items that have 5 years and 10 years and different warranties, that the overall site facility otherwise is a 1-year warranty. City staff, I appreciate, was able to find a document and we were able to go back in our records from 2014 and also confirm that the City Council and the School Board did in fact approve the project with a 1-year warranty. I know a number of the staff members weren't here then. I had been on the job for at least 4 or 5 weeks at that time, but I didn't know all the aspects of the JOA at the time either. And I think it's unfortunate that there was an error in communicating that it was otherwise. But it is a 1-year warranty. I think the good news that I've shared with the board is that I feel very good. What a great job Mr. Helfenberger, Brad has done with helping us monitor the list that I see is on the screen. And we've been monitoring this since the punch list since November and December. We've been on top of it. So practically speaking, it would be very nice if we had 2 years, but I think that Turner has been very responsive to these items, continues to be responsive, and we've really been on top of this thanks in great part to Brad's help. So that is my update, but I think the board and council already knows most of what I said.
Excuse me, Mr. Superintendent, when is the year up?
Mm-hmm. I believe it's the 5th of December.
You are correct.
December 5th.
December 5th?
Right. Now, it's also my understanding, Mr. Marion would know more about this, that if there is something we find, like even beyond that date, that is an issue, that there is still some recourse, and I don't know the specifics of that, but I'm still learning some of that.
Yes, there is a possibility of addressing it as a latent defect based on in use or this longevity of the item. So there is a possibility of addressing it at the time.
So I appreciate, Mr. Rubio, your comments on this. I asked for this item to be on the agenda because I'm troubled by this. Not that mistakes happen, but unlike the 5 members of the school board and for sure Councilmember Pats and others who have a interest in school policy and education and are experts, I think, relative to me at least in that space, I come in with a lot less opinion about the origin of the school, the history that's there. I'm not vested in that old issue. However, Councilmember Martinez, I think, aptly put on a council agenda, you know, what was the goal? What do we want to each accomplish out of these meetings? And I have 2 things that I want to accomplish out of these meetings. One is I want there to be accountability and transparency between the work we do on this campus. And so earlier I thanked you for the work you did to resolve a years-long issue about ownership on that Ralph Hawley campus, and I think that bringing resolution to that will prevent future problems that we have with things like funding the TMA and the city and legal issues the city might have. So I'm grateful for the efforts that have been made. And so on one hand I have that. And the second thing is not being a parent, not being an expert on education policy, but being a elected person in a city that has an obligation to all the residents who come to this campus and all the students who go to school here. My primary concern with this campus is the safety of it. And I can be very amenable to almost anything that we do about this campus, whether we name a building a certain way, what the after-school program is. I'm not here to force an opinion on those things, but I have a very strong opinion on the safety of this community. And I don't think I'm alone in that by any means, but I'm concerned because I think you said it correctly. There's been a communication breakdown here, and I'm less interested in placing the blame perhaps today as I am understanding what we're doing to resolve that communication breakdown. Because while, yes, the City Council did approve on August 5th, 2014, the agreement that you're mentioning, not one person on this council was elected that day. And for me, that's a concern because we rely on staff and the people you choose to contract with to give us accurate information that allows us to make informed decisions as we go. And so I'm aware that we had received information, people who were on this council before me and some who are here today and some board members, information about the status of the warranty. And back in March, I raised the specter with some of my colleagues here of auditing this project, which I believe is just a good business practice for anything of this size. And I see the audit is below this on the agenda, so I won't speak to it too much. But I am interested in hearing from you how this communication breakdown happened in your opinion, because I'm not looking to expose this in some sort of dramatic fashion, but I do want to prevent this from happening again, just like we, I think, resolved, I want to finish, just like we resolved the issues at Ralph Hawley. In order for us to move forward on these issues, I feel like we have to have a more open and trustworthy dialogue. I also know, having served on the Parcel Tax Committee, that although we have an oversight committee here in this city who worked on the bonds in this project, citizens are not the ones to be held accountable and responsible at the end of the day for the decisions that we as electeds and you as the administrators make. And so for me, I'm concerned because this list might look long to a lot of people who aren't familiar with projects of this size. This isn't a very long list. But there is a high level of frequency with which new things are reported. And so we have a very small window to make claims, and I appreciate latent defect law, and I appreciate other issues that would allow us to make claims after a deadline for things that have special warranties on them. But some of these things affect the safety of children, and that gets me back to my primary concern with this, is that I'm concerned that there's a communication breakdown between the school district and the contractors who you're using, the oversight people you're using, and even your lawyer in some respects, I think. So I just would ask you to speak to what the communication error has been and what we are going to do to make sure this doesn't continue.
Should I do that now?
You can do that.
Yeah?
Yes, please.
Okay. I think, and what I know is that Mr. Baker Swinnerton was hired by the school district, I believe, in the spring of 2014. It's my understanding that Mr. Baker had documents in a draft agreement between the city and the district showing that it was a 2-year warranty. I've seen 2 different references. One was that those documents were from May of 2014, and another that said they were from July of 2014. I'm not sure which it was. So my understanding, to answer your question, is that unfortunately Mr. Baker did not check after the agreement was passed by council and by the board if anything had changed. And so I think as the new superintendent on the job, I too was relying on Swinnerton and what he was informing us in our weekly meetings with the city manager. And it was said so many times, as it was to us in public meetings, that we all believed it to be true. So the community, and honestly, Mayor Bartis, this was helpful that city staff found this document that was presented to the council, and I know that nobody here was on council or board at that time. I'd never seen this. So this wasn't shared with me, and I missed it in the 111-page document where it was one sentence that the board approved on my 4th week here. So I missed it as well. So I think, you know, I appreciate what you said. Mistakes do happen on projects. Mistakes happen often on construction projects. I think the best thing we can do in our partnership as a city and board, which I think we've been improving on, particularly since we've been together at ECCL, is to make sure documents and communication is flowing. Pedro and the city manager, Carolyn, and I have been working really well together in keeping communication flowing. I don't know how it was flowing, if it was not flowing as well, but that's what I can share with you about how the mistake occurred.
So I appreciate that. So I asked Mr. Baker to be here, and I understand he's on vacation. So who is he still the person who's responding to the school district on these issues?
No, Swinnerton is no longer employed by the school district, so he is not the person. He did call. I don't know if you received my email, but Mr. Baker did call and apologize for the error because I think he feels very bad about what happened.
Okay, so I'm gonna refrain from commenting further because I've editorialized. I think there should be public comment at this point probably. But I want to revisit this when we talk about the next agenda item because I think that they're linked a little bit. So I appreciate your answers. So.
Do we have any more clarifying questions for Dr. Rubio or city staff?
I have several, but I'll defer until public comment's over.
I have a question. John, what's your sense for knocking these out of the list and solving the remaining of these issues in terms of timing or resources, or what's the best step forward to resolving all these?
Well, and I may need to rely on Brad for some of the answers to this because he's really been helping us in like coordinating these. I think, again, as I said earlier, Turner is doing a great job of responding to these items. There are no major critical items around safety that I'm aware of today that are something that we're waiting for Turner to come back and fix. So I'm happy to say that to you because I appreciate your concerns around safety. Member Cruz, it's a little bit hard for me to answer this at this moment regarding how fast these are going to be knocked out. I know that Brad and Pedro, when we meet, we do prioritize these. Our big priority right now has been getting the fencing fixed because aesthetically it looks very displeasing to us, and we think to the community, to see rust coming through on the gates that have not been up very long. And so it's not a safety concern as much as it is an aesthetic concern. And Swinnerton has had staff and a different subcontractor here going to those gates, putting anti-rust or rust inhibiting coatings down, filling gaps where water can collect, and then repainting them. So I wish I had a better specific, but I don't have timelines prepared on each of these tonight, unfortunately.
I have a clarifying question as well, and my question is, are any items that have already been identified or that are identified within the 1-year warranty, will those be covered regardless of whether they are fixed within the warranty period?
My understanding is if they've been reported, then if it goes past the 1 year, if it was reported before the 1 year was over, they're responsible for fixing it still.
Okay, thank you. Any additional clarifying questions? Right, any public comment?
Betsy Cooley, resident. First of all, I want to say that I agree pretty much with everything that Member Bouders had to say. I also want to say that when I read about this controversy, I was on the first, I belonged to the Measure J Construction Oversight Bond Committee for the first year, and I dropped off at the end of a year, and part of the reason I did is because I really felt that as a member of the community that we were really dependent on materials that were provided to us by the school district or by the city. I mean, we didn't go out to the construction site. We didn't, we didn't read all the contracts. We didn't, and I always really felt that I wasn't really comfortable signing off on something to say that, I'm providing oversight and everything is just fine. And I'm making this comment partially in regard to the next item because I had read somewhere that when there's been talk about an audit of the construction, that there was an oversight committee, and I'm just speaking for myself as a former member, and I had also attended quite a few meetings after I had dropped off of the committee. So I think that everybody on the committee, they were all very intelligent, very committed people who, so I'm not in any way suggesting that anybody was doing anything wrong or that they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. It's just I don't know in a situation like that. Another member of the oversight committee and I had attended a Contra Costa bond construction meeting because we were trying to figure out, well, how does this all work? How are we supposed to figure out what's going on? And they have quite a few construction projects that have been going on for quite a few different years. And so it's something that was an established process that had been going on for some time. And I just really came away from it thinking that I really, really just never felt confident that I would be willing to sign off and say, yes, I think everything's fine, because I wasn't at the construction site. I didn't see stuff coming in. I didn't see the building, actually being built to say, oh, yes, this was done correctly or it wasn't done correctly. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to have to call out bollocks. I think we're being fed a line here tonight. I went to many of those meetings. We're up on the PowerPoint presentations presented by Mr. Rubio showing 2-year warranty. And I have documented, I've gone back and documented. So he's now, Mr. Rubio, the superintendent, is now telling us that he's not to blame and Swinnerton is to blame, I guess, and these past board members is to blame. And nobody that's around that can make any amends or can answer is to blame. Everybody except for Mr. Rubio is to blame. And now we understand Mr. Swinnerton can't be here, he's on vacation. I don't believe that. I think it's a load of bollocks. And now we can't go back to Mr. Baker right now because we've already paid him over $1 million, and now he's not going to answer this like colossal screw up. So, Mr. Rubio, you sat here and you showed us a slide for month after month after month that we have 2 years on this warranty, and then one meeting, a citizen was here when it said, when accidentally, perhaps, the slide said we have 1 year. So then no school board members said anything at all about that. Instead, a member of the public came up and said, excuse me, we've been told 2 years, and here you just showed a slide that says 1 year. What about that? And then Mr. Baker from Swinnerton, with Mr. Rubio sitting there, nodding in approval, that was a typographical error. So, bollocks. You know, we need to get answers on this. We need to find out what did Mr. Rubio know and when did he know it. I think he's like passing this off now as, you know, he's ducking his responsibility, which is sort of his MO. And, you know, we deserve answers on this. We spent like $100 million before financing on this thing, and now to find out now, and then he sat on this information that it was actually only 1 year for some undetermined amount of time that you guys should find out before he bothered to tell anybody. And once again, it was a private citizen that had to pull this out of Mr. Rubio. So he's, you know, this is a huge controversy. We have to get answers on this. We deserve answers. We're paying hundreds of millions of dollars for this project. We deserve answers. I expect answers to be forthcoming here tonight.
Any additional public comment? Do we have any additional discussion from the committee members?
Yeah, I have some things I'd like to ask and talk about. I want to follow up on what Member Bowders said, and I always have to say I'm impressed by how cordial he can be, and I struggle with being cordial. Communication is essential, and I was on the board, the school board, when this contract was approved. I was here back then. You and I came on at the same time, and you said it was your first 4 weeks, so it's about the same for me. I don't want to echo what Brian said, but I had that same thought. What is recently found out? You know, I found out, I think, earlier this week, and I've been told you knew in June. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I'm old, but that's not recently to me. I would have liked to have known in June, just because that gives me more time to gather information. You know, you mentioned relying on Swinnerton, and I've looked back at the school board meetings where we had a first and second reading of the contract, and both versions have 1 year listed. And so Swinnerton must have had a different version that was older than that. But my challenge is not that that mistake was made and carried forward. My challenge is that I spent 6 months sitting at this dais, listening to Mr. Baker beat us over the head with, no, it's okay to sign off on final completion because you have a 2-year warranty. And that's my issue, is that 2-year warranty mistake was used as a leverage point to get us to sign off. And I think I was off the board December 5th when the board finally signed off. But I know at that meeting, The final sign-off was based on the idea that, yes, we have all this punch list items to do, but we've got 2 years to get them fixed. And to come back a year later and say, well, we don't really have 2 years, that's a mistake. That is a big mistake for somebody who's making, I don't remember if it's $1.2 or $1.5 million that we paid to Swinnerton, but to be relying on a contract. And I did find it with the 2-year piece. I looked, I spent some time researching, and it was a draft presented to the city. Had the 2-year warranty in it. And it's the only place I can find it presented to a public body. And all I can think of is, as this project was moving forward and had pothole after pothole, it was a way to sell it to the city. But it wasn't in the city follow-up a month later when they approved, 2 months later when they approved the contract. And so I guess my big question is, why are we relying on a contract that wasn't approved by either body? Because no vote was taken at either time. Why are we allowing Swinnerton, who said, oh, just because we're done doesn't mean we're going anywhere. We'll still be around. I remember Mr. Baker saying that. You know, just because we're signing off on final completion, oh, we're still around through the warranty period. So you're telling me he has no relationship just adds to, and I'm trying to think of the number of meetings that I went to and called Mr. Baker a liar at. I even went to a city council meeting and took time off of my life to go and call him a liar. And so the level of upset that I have over this, that we had 6 months, and I'm mad at myself for not catching it, but I'm madder at the fact that I called this man a liar at multiple meetings, and here we have an egregious lie. This place has problems. I don't know if you've walked the second floor, but there's sections of concrete. You cannot walk from that building to this building on the second floor outside without seeing large 6-foot or more cracks in each piece of concrete. Every single one, no, I take that back. There was one over there that didn't have a crack in it. But all the other sections of concrete have not a small crack, not a fissure, but a canyon running through them. And I'm sure you're aware of this, correct?
I am. It's an architectural issue, actually.
Yeah.
It's not DSK, excuse me, it's not Turner or
Yeah.
Swinnerton.
But it just speaks to the problems we have here. And so I just don't know how this can go on. And so when I stand up here and ask for an audit, and I know this is going to go into the next item, but when I stand up here and ask for an audit, this is why. Because when I spend $1.2 million, I expect better service. And when you tell me that we don't need an audit because we can trust Mr. Baker, I'm going to tell you, we can't trust Swinnerton. They have lied to us on more than one occasion about multiple items. When you hear Ms. Cooley come up and say, I was on the COC, and it's a very standard, you know, the information we have is only as good as what we're given. And here I'm going to say, we relied on for over 2 years information from a bad contract.
And are you suggesting that, you keep using the word lie, are you saying that was intentional by our representative, by Mr. Baker and Swinnerton?
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, intentional is a strong word, but yeah,
Well,
I think so.
So
I
was
feel
lie, that's why I just
feel
was
like,
curious.
yeah, no,
Okay.
we were, lied means told the wrong thing, you know. Just because you believe it to be true doesn't make it anything false. I'm going to go epistological on you there. So, I got the look from the Notre Dame guy. And there was something else I wanted to say in here, and I'm trying to remember what it was, so bear with me 1 second. But yeah, that's the audit piece to me of, we've spent a lot of money. I think 100 million is about right. It's 96, you just sold more bonds, so I don't know. And to tell me that that money is all to be trusted to the people we've had oversight, I don't buy it.
Yes, Mayor Donahue.
Before too long, I think Alameda County Mosquito Abatement should send the mosquito instructors, not inspectors, to this facility, because it's a public safety issue that standing water from landscaping from certain times of year can cause mosquitoes to breed. That can be a public health issue, and sometimes solving standing water issues is expensive. And it just seems like we should know all of these issues. And I can see there's a few items on here where there's a design aspect that's causing standing water. But it's not just what you can see, but also all of the areas that you cannot see that can breed mosquitoes. So I just think that we need to take care of that and get those areas identified, because we might get Turner to fix those issues. And you know, if time is really of the essence, this is something I think we cannot afford to not inspect for.
Any additional discussion?
Yes, I'd just like to say that I'm a glass half full kind of guy. And I do appreciate, John, the effort in fixing these items. And I trust that the sense of urgency that everybody's describing resonates with you as well. And hopefully it resonates the importance of fixing these items, before the 1-year warranty expires. And I say that because if we fix all these items before the warranty expires, then this issue becomes irrelevant. The issue about the warranty becomes irrelevant. So thank you for that.
Sure. So thank you. Just a reminder, everyone, that the ones that are coded green, I believe, are coded by Brad, correctly with Brad, as issues are resolved. And I would add that, with all due respect to Member Patz's comments, which I totally get, the cracked concrete is not something that either the city staff or I are happy about. We are in an ongoing conversation or debate with the architects about that, and that's going to enter some legal conversations soon, I think. And so it's not aesthetically pleasing. They are cracks. It doesn't look nice. I don't see that as a major critical item in terms of safety. I think something city staff and district staff need to decide as we go along. Is it something that do we let it ride for a while? Do we make a decision based on budgeting down the road? Is it something we correct or not? It could be pretty expensive to be done correctly, but it's not a critical safety issue. I'm not happy about it, but I appreciate that there aren't. These are pretty minor items.
Yeah, I think to respond both to that and to what Member Vargas said, time. Right, cracks in concrete, they're small now, but the reason you don't want cracks in concrete is because they allow it to deteriorate faster, right? Otherwise, concrete would have more designs on it. What's going to happen is water's going to get in there, and the concrete's going to deteriorate and become a safety issue. And as Dora Sue pointed out, we put a ridiculously small amount of money aside for future maintenance. And if you have to replace the concrete up there, which you will have to do well before 50 years are up, right? And I'm not in construction, but concrete wears out and concrete's expensive to fix. And so you're going to have to chuck it out, re-pour it. That's going to eat up all the money we have set aside for normal wear and tear. So while it's not a safety issue at the moment, it's going to be a safety issue in the future. And as far as the difference between getting everything that we know about fixed and having another year to identify more challenges, those are two separate issues, right? We've lost an entire year to find out where the other cracks in the cement are. And so when you say to me that, oh, well, December 5th will come and we'll have all this fixed, that's great. But I guarantee you, well, I can't guarantee it, but probability tells me on December 6th you're going to find something. And, you mentioned the lawsuit. That's the position you're going to be in, because Turner can argue, yeah, it's not us at that point. It's not a warranty issue. So you're going to, I didn't remember the fancy term that Member Merriam used. What?
Latent defect.
Yeah, latent defect is much more challenging to identify, prove, and you'll spend more money on attorneys fixing it, or trying to get them to admit to fixing it, than just fixing it. That's my day job is nothing but avoiding paying attorney fees.
I agree. And just a reminder that these are, just for the public's knowledge, these are architectural, unfortunately, issues. They're not issues, just to keep clarifying that.
I would like to get back to the point. So I'm hearing you say that we have one, that it's ending, and that there's nothing we can do about it, that the warranty is over, that in December, that it's over. And you are telling us that there is nothing we can do about, and that we have Is that what you're telling us, that there's nothing we can do about it? It's
Well,
over?
Well, I
done?
guess I would say two things. One is just, again, City Council and the school board in 2014, in the summer of 2014, approved the project with a one-year warranty.
So that's a yes?
That's a yes in terms of what exists for the one-year warranty. I would remind everybody that the City Council at the time, and again, no offense meant to any previous members of council, had a very focused, targeted, maximum amount of money that they were willing to say yes to for this project, and they held on to that number for a couple of years, is my understanding, as construction costs were rising. In the last weeks of the negotiations, from what I understand, I believe the city and district asked Turner again for an additional $500,000 discount.
So, I'm sorry.
So I'm just let me finish,
Your
please.
answer is yes.
I answered yes, but I would like to add some information if that's okay with you.
No.
Oh, okay, well, I'm going
It's
to,
not.
I like to, unless the chair tells me I can't. So I just want to remind everyone, there was a, I think it was called the GMP for the project. The city said, hey, we're not going to approve it unless it stays under this. Turner gave another $500,000 discount to the project, and I suspect that might have been what caused some of these changes in the last-minute negotiations. So, I don't know.
So if that were the case, then how come that was so unknown to the players? And then let me ask you, when there's a miscommunication and one party benefits from that miscommunication, that is, Swinnerton benefited from the idea that there was a 2-year warranty. They leveraged that to get sign-off on completion. So when you're talking about miscommunication, when one party benefits from that and the other party is left with one less year warranty, then I think that that is dishonest, and I feel like there should be some recourse. I don't know if there is, but you sound like you have given up on any recourse. You are satisfied that 1 year is good enough and that's all we get, and you're not going to fight for the district.
I didn't say anything like that.
Madam Chair, I see December 5th fast approaching, and I'm finding it hard to explain the feeling I'm having right now at losing a year and that opportunity to discover more defects that would have been under warranty that will no longer be. And while I believe that Brad does a phenomenal job, for instance, he doesn't go in the ladies' restrooms, and I did just now, and the granite countertop, guess what? It has separated from the wall in the backsplash. The brackets that are underneath it are not sufficient to hold it up for the type of use that it's getting. So this is a great list. Thank you for keeping track of it. But my question to staff is, can we get someone in here to really check out the campus and let us know what we can add to this before December 5th? I think it would be worth, a few $1,000s to have someone on our side who's an inspector, who's not just going by code, but who's actually looking at the workmanship and not the, not exactly, the bare minimum, but what might fail.
Member Miriam, I'm interested. I think that's an interesting idea. Do you have any comments on your expertise, if you would lend it to us, please?
So I always worry about a board member utilizing their expertise. I feel like that sort of, and I'm looking at you, Member Bowers, for your expertise, but I kind of feel like that's sort of one of those things that I thought board members were not supposed to do.
I don't think there's any harm in him, whether Member Bowers offering a legal opinion on property or taxes.
I think if he couches it as a lay opinion without having seen anything he's speaking about, and it's no more than that, I think that's okay.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure. I don't want to put Mr. Member.
I will enter the record as this is my opinion. Member Martinez, that would be a positive approach as far as if you hired a contractor to come in here or an inspector to basically review the work as far as fleshing out any defect or construction issues. But I do want to back up and start off with the initial conversation, and when starting to go with punch list versus warranty, those are two separate things, and I would like not to confuse the two. Punch list is items that were to be finished under the contract, and warranty is where the item has been completed and used, or after the contract has been completed. So please don't confuse the two. I know that there was a conversation regarding Mr. Baker pertaining to warranty items, and we tried to winnow it down. I think we had started in September to start the warranty issue, and we pushed it off until a number of items that were addressed or identified and addressed as a punch list items, and not to be for substantial or notice of completion, which was December 5th. So that helped us in the scheme of things. Now, when it goes into warranty issues, a common in a lot of construction projects is a 1-year warranty. 2-year is a bonus. So it's not that we're being shortchanged in the scheme of things or in the typical public school construction era or area. It'd just be of concern that when you have a 1-year warranty, that's usually par for the course, and you can expand it to 2 years, which is a possibility that was alluded to in a previous contract iteration. But as the final contract was signed, it was a 1-year contract or 1-year warranty. So it's not like we're not getting anything, but yes, identifying the problem. And you bring up a good point about the item as far as the lavatory or the sink of a counter in the women's restroom. That would almost fall under a construction defect, and that would be fleshed out in that investigation, or just in noting it to the contractor that it failed, and that is that design is approved by the state as far as, because it is a structural item. So I just want to make sure that that has been identified.
Member Bowders.
Thanks. I want to take the comments from the last 3 members of this committee, Member Inch, Member Martinez, and Member Merriam, and I want to use my opinion and my non-professional capacity to suggest a couple things. You know, when we pay someone $1.2 million to advise us, I think Member Merriam is right about all these things. It's typical to have a 1-year construction warranty for things like this. But Swinnerton is in the business of doing construction, and Swinnerton would know that. We also paid them to advise us on the course of this project, which meant being intimately familiar with the contracts that govern it. Swinnerton is in the position to know this. Swinnerton should be giving us appropriate and accurate advice. And so when you look at it, although I'm not the district's attorney, we have bad advice, in my opinion, and we have some clear negligence in the ability to accurately perform duties under contract related to giving advice to a body that's spending a lot of money. The school district had to issue bonds. They had to engage in a construction review process. And you know, I think to Member Inch's point, you know, there's frustration here about what we believed we had versus what we had. And while I don't disagree at all with Member Merriam about that we functionally have the time period that we would normally have, the reality is that unlike Member Merriam, the rest of us are not architects or in construction to know that that is the norm, and we relied on the advice of the people we contracted with to do the work we did. And so I think Councilmember Martinez raises the most practical solution in light of the status of where we are today, and I appreciate you bringing that idea forward, actually. I think that my suggestion to the district would be to consider speaking to Swinnerton about how we might not have signed off on final construction, how we might not have issued the start of the warranty period when we did, how we might not have done a number of things had the advice we received and the counsel we had received been more appropriate. And you can do this without initiating litigation. You can simply say, we would like an amount of the fee we paid you back to hire someone independently to go and do a review of the campus within the next 90 days so that we have an accurate forecast as to where there are possibilities of issues so that the district and the school, or I'm sorry, and the city to some degree, are in the best position to ascertain whether there are potential latent defects that can be seen by someone who's an expert in this space. I'm not one of them. Whether there are things that will be easy to take on in the scope that we have on this chart, or whether there are things that are capable of being put on the side and dealt with in the future as a matter of litigation. So I want to agree with all three of the prior speakers, but I also want to propose that the most appropriate thing to do is to move beyond the finger pointing, to accept that we received some bad advice, but it's not an immaterial amount of bad advice, because I think that to the comments made by the public and other members of this committee, when you rely on advice, regardless of what's in a contract, when you rely on it and take action based on that, people are contractually liable to you for the mistakes that they make or the misjudgments they make based on those statements or assertions. So there were a series of assertions that Swinnerton made about a contract to this board and to the school board in particular that were not only inaccurate but very inaccurate. And the school board, I think, to its own detriment, relied on that. And I'm not your counsel, but I would just suggest, having spent over 10 years working in contract law, that you consult with your attorneys about the ability to reclaim portions of your fee in order to make best use of the time we have left. And that's my suggestion.
May I?
Yes, please.
Thank you for that. That was excellent. I think that's a brilliant idea. I want to go back to something Rubio said earlier, that because I had a similar thought, and I think when I was speaking to the city manager about how this change occurred, you mentioned that this might have been one of the things that was value engineered out of the project.
Well, I wouldn't call it value engineering. I know there were some intense negotiations between the former city attorney and the district's attorney and Turner in the last minute, and I know that both parties asked for another $500,000 discount from Turner to be able to get the project within a monetary amount that the council would be willing to approve. That's what I know.
Yeah, and Baker was on board at this point in time and would have been a part of those, correct?
My understanding is that yes, Swinnerton was hired at that time. Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean I knew they were.
Not part of the negotiations process, though. Not between the city and the district. They were not part of that.
The city and the district, or the city and Turner? Or
the city, district, and Turner were in negotiations.
Baker didn't participate in those conversations?
Swinnerton was not involved in that.
That seems odd to me. Okay.
Any additional discussion? All right, we will move on to our last information item, 6.7, audit of the Emeryville Center of Community Life. And I believe, Ms. Lair, that you will be reporting on this.
Am I?
Or someone else?
Well, I think it's the council direction that they gave at city council regarding.
Yes, well, that the city council did authorize up to $21,000 that they would put forth for the purpose of conducting an audit if the school board decided that they wish to conduct an audit. The intention being, I believe, that the city would pay a similar portion of what we, our normal portion for other expenses. And so we came up with an estimate of $21,000. And if at some point that the school board wishes to go forward with the audit, then we would bring this item back to the city council with that new information for the council to confirm.
Any clarifying questions?
Yeah, a clarifying question. Is that the max amount, or does that assume that the district would put an amount in the weight of, what is it, the 71-29% split?
I think it would be reasonable to expect that we did what we could in order to roughly estimate what the cost of such an audit might be. It is, if the audit is very different, I wouldn't be surprised if the council wishes to consider the amount. But at this time, this was a preliminary amount that the council felt comfortable with.
Thank you.
Any additional clarifying questions? Any public comment? Yes, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rodney Wong. I'm on the Citizens Oversight Committee. And this audit, are we talking about a financial audit, or is this a construction audit or a maintenance audit, or what type of audit are we talking about here?
I believe that's undetermined at this time. We will be holding a school board meeting on that item. John, do you know what day that will be yet?
I do not. I have reached out to the Inspector of Record, John Miller, and I'm waiting to hear back from him. So I'm trying to confirm whether he can come to a board meeting in August, our next board meeting, second board meeting in August, if possible.
So we're aiming for the second board meeting in August to have a fairly comprehensive review of audit options and get input from a number of the construction players, so to speak.
That's great, because we've been having audits independently provided to us and reported back to the board over the last few years.
Yeah.
Dr. Rubio, maybe you can.
No, every year. You're correct. I assume that's why you're asking the question. So you've been one of the members reviewing those audits yearly. So it's not a surprise to me that you would ask why are we doing it. If it's a financial audit, depends on what the board decides. But yes, you've been one of the members, and thank you, as was Ms. Cooley before, reviewing all the expenses in the yearly audits presented to your committee and to the board.
And my understanding is that we'll have discussion of what those audits contain, and those sort of that process will be presented to the board as well at the second meeting in August, when we have this fairly comprehensive discussion of the audit that is on the agenda item.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, well, Mr. Rubio just told us that the last item, which is related to this item, that he can't be held responsible, he has nothing to do with it, and but I remind everybody, we pay him like I think it's over $200,000 a year for him to know this kind of thing. That how much time do we have on the warranty? We pay him over $200,000. Now we pay Mr. Baker at Swinnerton over $1 million to tell us that, and he couldn't do that either. But there's only one person here left standing that needs to take responsibility, and that's Mr. Rubio. We pay him over $200,000 a year to know this and tell us this, and I can't believe all you people here are kind of sort of letting him off the hook. There's like all these pregnant pauses. You should ask him, why didn't you tell us? Why are we paying you all this money if he's like horrible at his job? Is that the problem? Are you really bad at your job? Now we're talking about the audit here. So I presume Mr. Rubio is going to stick by his gun that he's been saying for a year now almost, that we must not have an audit. And he says he won't, if he was, Mr. Insubordination, he told us that he wouldn't even do the work necessary to find out about starting an audit, even if the board told him to do it, which is totally insubordinate. Now we find out, if there was ever a reason that's glaring as to why we need an audit, it is this warranty issue where the people that are supposed to be in control don't even know what the hell's going on. So we have to do an audit, clearly. So now the city of Emeryville is offering to kick in $21,000. I thank the city for that. So now I want to watch Mr. Rubio explain why we can't do an audit now. Now with the $21,000 kicked in from the city, I want to watch him tell us why we have to trust him, that everything's wonderful, he's in control.
Thank you, sir. You're out of time.
It's outrageous.
I'd like to agree with Member Bowders, Pats, and Medina that I think we should just move forward. We need to figure out can we get money back from Swinnerton? Can we, pin down where it is that we were being told it was 2 years, and at what point the contract was actually changed to 1 year, and see what money we can get to fix that. I mean, they should have an errors and omissions policy, I would think, if that was their error. But I think, you know, you just need to look at figuring out where this happened and how we move forward.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Do we have any additional discussion from the board, the committee?
Yeah, I'll note for Betsy that I hadn't chimed in yet, but I do actually agree that we should look into it and see about getting any money back and everything fixed as possible before the December 5th deadline.
I just want to appreciate that Betsy brought up the errors and omissions policy, and I'd be curious if you go to Swinnerton and ask them whether that might cover this situation. I would appreciate it. I know that.
Yeah, my comment to the question that was raised by the first speaker, I apologize I didn't get your name, but as to whether this is a fiscal or a construction audit, I think that's for the school board to decide, as was mentioned already. My suggestion would be that the Swinnerton contract be used for a construction audit and that the school board join the city council in conducting a fiscal audit, because there is not only one way to address the fiscal issues, I think, that are going to result from the combination of events we're discussing. I think we need to look into what needs to be dealt with at a construction level as soon as possible, if that's necessary, so that we can avoid expensive amounts of overhead in a very short window of time. The maintenance fund that Mr. Mayor Donahue mentioned earlier and asked about, I think that's not going to be funded adequately to deal with some of the costs that could be resulting from construction. So I think we need to examine our options on that through one channel. But on the other channel, we have unfinished business with Turner, and you know, I think we need to have a conversation with Turner, especially because if we turn up some construction items, we may have an argument for not paying for certain things. And so I think a fiscal audit is helpful. I know this takes an extraordinary amount of work, and I know it takes money to do this, but I think it's a matter of good governance and fiscal responsibility in the end to basically insure against a project you spend this much money on. That's just my personal philosophy.
Any additional discussion?
I have one item. Going through the parties that were involved with the ECCL, there's three in particular, basically the district, Swinnerton, and Turner, the contractor, the general contractor. And with that in mind, when here again is that we're pushing things together when in fact there's separate contracts for each. Turner administered the contract to construct the ECCL, so there's any construction defect, and the bulk of the financial aspect of that project lies with them. It doesn't lie with Swinnerton. Swinnerton administered as was an agent, a representative for the district in dealing with Turner. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that when we approach it in a fashion, when we talk in the public realm, is that it's clear and concise, not to confuse the two. So I just want to put that out there.
Thank you.
I do have a question of clarification. Was there ever any formal action taken to direct the hiring of an inspector, as it would seem that time would be of the essence to identify and capture any of the additional potential warranty items?
This appears to be an information item. You could take a straw poll of everyone present and use your judgment. You know, I believe that both of you have discretionary power to spend up to a certain amount, and if you find that that's the will of this board, I would suggest that you do that.
Would be the one thing that I think the two agencies' staff could work together on, is getting that done quickly and making sure that we provide a thorough inspection, and because again, it is the identification of these issues during the warranty period that will provide us with the best protection.
And again, I just want to say that Brad does an amazing job, but that, you know, I don't want to add another thing on your plate and make you responsible for this whole warranty situation, because not your fault. But, you know, I'd love to have a professional pair of eyes with a construction background.
Brad, can you walk through and fix the rest of this stuff for us? No.
Yeah, can you take care of that, Brad?
I actually just want to state for the record to Member Martinez, who I can't see right now, But Member Martinez, I know you're there. I like your idea, and I appreciate the suggestion to go back and check our contract with Swinnerton. And I really like the idea of going back and asking them and saying to them what was suggested this evening by, I think, you and Member Bowders, regarding having them, the costs for such inspection to come from their fees that they charged us. So I have no issue moving
If I worked
forward
at
with that.
Swinnerton, I would be very happy with that proposal.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't have any issue with that. I don't think I need any direction for that. I'm happy to do that.
I guess I would ask one question. Would the committee be open that Swinnerton would provide someone to do that inspection, or you want a separate person?
No.
I wanted to make sure, because I think they might propose that.
Pedro, you're really treading on thin ice, buddy.
You just wanted to hear us answer.
It's a good question. It's a good question. It's good I had that clarification.
All right, with that, let's move on to agenda item 7, future agenda items. And I will note that right now we have future agenda item discussion of City School Purpose Committee at 7.1. It's my understanding that the school board will be discussing that item before the October 5th City School Committee meeting, and that we will bring that item back before the City School Committee at that time.
I have an ask, which is just that item 6.5 from today, that not that we have a presentation, but just that the final actual budget we receive as an information item and attachment to the packet with the final budget, so we can just see how it flushed out.
Any additional future agenda items? Going once, twice, 3 times?
I have a comment I'd like to make.
What's our process for community members bringing future agenda items?
So the question, I think, is about public comment, and I know that the person at the public comment podium and I might disagree on this, but for a future agenda item, you're not obligated to take public comment on this item, but it is a practice generally to do that. If they propose something, it's still up to you whether you wish to entertain it. A member can bring it up.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Public comment.
Okay, I just wanted to say I intend on taking pictures of school board member Cruz Vargas and then Don Merriam and then Bailey Langner, but I don't want to take bad pictures of you because that's unfair. So I would like to take pictures of you, and then I'll let you delete the ones that you don't like, and this is for publication in my blog. Like I said, I'm not trying to make you look bad, and so I want to give you the chance to delete, and if you are amenable to that, let me know, otherwise I'll just take pictures. Thank you.
I hope you use a better picture of me, Mr. Donahue. I appreciate that. I didn't know that was an option. Thank you.
All right, item 8. Item 8. Any announcements, member comments? Seeing none, I will move to item 9. This meeting is adjourned.